And now that we look at the presidential election coming up, I was also saying to Jane, just don't look at the candidates, look at what they stand for and what they're telling you. And see if it makes sense to you. Because you know what? There ain't no Superman coming. It's super people. That's us. We have to be informed citizens who will set aside the nonsense, set aside all the blather that you see on television, study these issues carefully, listen to the candidates at congressional level or at presidential level, see if they make sense. This is the time for Americans to start making sense with each other and not just fall for the extremes or fall for some of the controversy that is enhanced on television in order to get market share or improve sales. This is a challenging time for America. But just like most of the people I see throughout the country, I have no doubt that we will overcome, that we will come through the other end. It is a fascinating time to see all this unfold, and I'm glad that this is a part of my life, just talking to audiences such as we have here. I have other interests. I'm a limited partner in a wonderful Silicon Valley company called Kleiner Perkins. They're the ones who gave you Google and Amazon and Netscape and all those wonderful institutions. There's a Googler in their house. But the reason I enjoy being a partner with them is that I have watched the information revolution come upon us. I was born analog. Desperately. I see most of you are also born analog. And I'm desperately trying to become digital because I've watched how it has changed the world, how it has knocked down cultural and geographic and time and space boundaries and allowed the whole world to see what other parts of the world are doing. It's what fueled freedom in Eastern Europe. It's what's fueling freedom today in the Arab Spring, because you can't hide from the rest of the world anymore. And those same pressures will build in Syria and Iran and elsewhere. And that's why more people are living under democracy today than ever before. And despite the conflicts you see, there are more nations living in a democratic system than we've ever seen before. And so I enjoy seeing how my partners are looking at the future. But I also love being a part of that because I'm trying to keep up with my grandchildren. It's awful. These kids were born hardwired digital, and they make me crazy. Not too long ago, one of my daughters was taking her niece and nephew somewhere, 5 and 7 years old. She put them in the back of the car, suited them all in back there, and starts to drive away, and the two kids start crying and screaming, Auntie Linda, stop, stop, stop. So she panics, she doesn't know what's wrong, she pulls over, what's wrong? Auntie Linda, you didn't turn on the GPS, we won't know where we're going. Now the kid who lives in their building, the parents bought a brand new 50-inch flat screen TV and put it on the wall. And the young 5-year-old starts crying. Calls, Mom, it's broken. And she runs in, my new television set broken. Well, it wasn't broken, the kid thought it was a big iPad.
Oh my goodness.
How are they to know differently? I mean, it's a big, why doesn't it work, Mommy? And here's the thing, it will in another generation.
No kidding.
Exactly what you're doing. The worst one is my 17-year-old smart kid, grandson, Brian. He's so into this stuff that it's starting to lose me. He's starting to lose me. I said to him one day, Brian, honey, you don't answer my phone calls anymore. You don't answer my emails anymore. Oh, Poppy, dear Poppy. We don't do emails anymore. And we try not to do phone calls anymore either.
Oh, no.
What do we do, Brian, please? Poppy, we text, ooh. And we tweet, ooh. Brian, what's a tweet? Ooh. It comes from Twitter. Why did they call it a twit? I'm so confused. I don't know nothing. Don't worry, Poppy. We're gonna get you a Twitter account. I don't want one. We'll also get you a Facebook page. I don't want one. I'm too old to need a social network site. Where was this when I was 20? I don't need it now. And so 3 days later, he says to me, don't worry about it. You already have a Facebook page.
Oh, yeah.
How could I have a Facebook page? Somebody said they were you. Mm-hmm. And it's up there. It says, Colin Powell's got your picture, your bio. Everything about you is there. I said, they can't do that to me. This is still America. You can't steal my identity like that. Get the lawyers. We're going to sue them. What's this kid's name? Zuckerberg? He's got a lot of money. We're going to get some of this money. We're going all the way with this kid in the Supreme Court. And then Brian says, but Poppy, you already have 33,000 friends. You go with it. And so I had a lot of fun with that. So you can see my life is interesting and full of fun. And I do a lot of youth work. And the youth work really is directly related to what Genesis is all about. A person just doesn't suddenly become violent at age 35 or 40. It starts much earlier. And I spent a lot of time with my wife working on this program that we have called the America's Promise Alliance. I founded America's Promise at the request of President Clinton and all of our other presidents back in 1997. And the basic premise behind America's Promise is that, hey, with all the wealth that we have, with all the success that we have, with all the resources that we have in this country, how can it be that we have children who see no promise in the future? That they don't know if the country's there for them? Dare they have an American dream? And so America's Promise was created to reinforce the idea that you can dream. It was brought home to me one day at a Boys and Girls Club in Florida. I was talking to a group of kids about 10 to 15 years old, just sitting on the floor in front of me, and I was giving them my background, born in Harlem, raised in the Bronx, immigrant family, poor, but we never wanted for anything. There was nothing but love in my family and my extended family and cousins. We took care of each other. The kid that, whenever I used to come home from school in the South Bronx, every other apartment building, every other tenement building had one of my aunts in the window looking down in the street to make sure that none of us got in trouble or did anything that would shame the family, extended family. And if they caught you doing something, they were free to apply domestic violence to you. But it was even worse. There was a worse thing they could do. They would call and tell your parents. And I've often kidded, we talk about the speed of the internet. It ain't nothing compared to the speed of the internet in the southwest section of the city. And they would turn you in. They would turn you in. And so with the America's Promise Alliance, which has been going on now for these past 15 years, it's been very successful. It's an umbrella organization. Boys and Girls Clubs are in it, Big Brothers, Big Sisters. And what I found in this Boys and Girls Club in Florida that got me so interested in this was after talking to the kids and telling them the story about my growing up in New York and the Bronx, started asking questions, the kids asking the questions. The young kids always ask, how old are you and what was it like being in war? That's what you come to expect. But after a few questions like that, a boy raised his hand. He was 10 years old. And he just looked at me with the most serious face imaginable of a 10-year-old kid. And he said to me, well, General, you did it fine and you had great parents, but can you make it? Can I make it if my parents don't care if I'm dead or alive? What do you say? Sorry, son, but yeah, you can make it because you're here in this Boys and Girls Club. People care about you. Or you're in a Genesis shelter or one of the other shelter facilities that you have. You reach out, embrace the family, embrace this woman, embrace her children. We can't just let kids like this one wander through life thinking that his parents don't care about him. Why should anybody else care about him? Because if he starts out in life that way, he starts to act that way. Becomes who he is. So with America's Promise, we created a very simple formula of what we had to do for kids. First, every child should have a responsible, caring, loving adult in his or her life. My family, my parents performed that role. My minister performed that role. Even Episcopalians do that. My coaches, my teachers, I was always surrounded by people. But we have a lot of kids who don't have responsible, caring, loving adults in their lives. They may have an abusive father. They may have a mother who was unable to care for that child. In that case, we bring in mentors. We bring in the big brothers and big sisters All of us have to reach out and surround that child to let that child know he or she is valuable. Second, we need safe places for our kids to learn and to grow. More after-school programs, more church, faith-based programs, so that they have somewhere to go in the afternoon where somebody is with them and says to them, you're important. The biggest thing that was done for me as a kid growing up in that neighborhood was that my parents had expectations for me, and they would not let me fail their expectations. I wasn't a great student. All of my cousins did better than me. I was the one who didn't become a doctor, a lawyer, a judge. He went in the Army. We didn't understand that. And they objected to my being in the Army all those years, but that's what my expectations took me, and I didn't get in trouble when I was doing something for my country, so they finally accepted it. They didn't really truly accept it until I became a general. And from then on, my mother always wanted my son the general. My aunts were only concerned that I got a pension at age 41 if I didn't become a general. The third thing we do is, and this is a tough one, there's 6 million children in America that are no children. 45 million of our own fellow citizens at all ages. You can't imagine what it's like as a Secretary of State or retired general to go to a place like Korea when we're having the big healthcare debate and saying to some of my Korean colleagues, what's going on? We're getting a conversation, what's going on back there, Powell? And I said, well, we're debating this. It's a tough issue for us. But we don't understand. Don't you have coverage for everybody, for everything? No. They don't understand it. They simply don't understand how you can have a society that will not take care of everyone or find a system to do it. And the most fascinating thing about it is they pay less for their full universal coverage than we pay for the system we have. I'm not advocating, because I don't know. I've had socialized medicine for the last 50 years as a soldier. Government's going to take care of me, anything I need. That's not the answer for everybody. But as we work our way through this health care thing, one, we got to take care of the children, children's health insurance programs, and then two, we have to find a way. And we have the resources. We just have to find the will and the political determination to find a health care system that provides for all Americans. Because it is the lack of... The fourth thing that America's Promise is focused on is giving every youngster a marketable skill, something they can take into the workplace. If a child doesn't have that marketable skill, destined for minimum wage job. And then fifth, we encourage all of our institutions of youth, schools, everything else, to give kids an opportunity to serve, to give back. Teach a child early to give back, and that child will take that virtue into adult life. And so that's what my wife and I have been working on. I founded it. My wife now runs it because I had to give it up when I went into government, and she won't give it back. And we're having a great deal of success with it. I also watch a lot of animal shows, which reinforce my belief in what children need. I love Animal Planet. I love National Geographic. I especially love one of those shows that show you how a mother lion takes care of cubs. And for the first few weeks, until the eyes are open, cubs never leave the den. Nurse right there. And then as they start to look around, the mother lets them go a little bit away from the den, but in a box. And that box is about the limit of their experience at that age. And if they go 1 inch outside that box, she grabs them, drags them back into the den, pops them upside the head. And then as they get older, the box gets bigger. And as they really become older, then they go out hunting with the mother so they can learn what it is to be a lion and how you take care of yourself. And then finally, at 18 months, 2 years of age, hey, you're on your own. Got another group coming. And I watch these things because it is so obvious to me. We're mammals. We cannot just simply have children and